In this demo, we want to create a simple query framework which will allow us to consume a collection of items and do a simple filtering, ordering, and projection by selecting a set of fields from the collection. I will start by creating a new Java project called query, and we will do a test-driven development. That means that we will start with the test first. I will create a new source folder called test, and in here I will create my JUnit test case in the package with the same name query, and I will use JUnit 4 version. Let's call the test query test. We need a setup before class method, but we don't have a class under test. Okay, we are adding the dependency to the JUnit library to the source, the build path of the project. Okay, so what I want to have is a simple model for representing cities. So I'll create here a class city that has a private int ID, a private string name, a private string district, and a private int inhabitants. Okay, I'm going to generate with the source generate constructor using fields, a constructor with all the fields, and I will generate from the source generate getters and setters. I will create getters for all the items that I have. And now I'm able to parse a CSV file with this kind of information. This is the file with all the cities in Romania with respect to the properties that we have, and I will create a static method to return a list of city called load cities that will get an input stream as parameter, and it will parse the file. So in a simple manner, I will have a list of city, let's call it cities. I will create a new array list of city, and we'll create a buffered reader, let's call it reader, on top of an input stream reader which is consuming the stream. This can return IO exception, and we are throwing it in case this will happen. So what I'm doing here, I'm just reading each line at a time from the file with the reader read line, and in case the line is null, then I'll have to break the while true. Otherwise, I'm trying to split into parts the line by comma delimiter, as the data are concatenated with this. And if we have exactly 4 parts, we can get the ID as being parsed with integer parse int from parts of 0.trim. I will have to parse the number of inhabitants the same way, but from index 3, and in between I will get the name as being from parts 1.trim and the district, which is parts of index 2.trim. Then I will create a new city with this information, and I will add the city to the cities list. In the end, I will return the list of cities. Okay, so this is the method. Inhabitants. We have a problem with this. I will rename the field. Sorry for misspelling it. So the number of inhabitants should be inhabitants. Okay. The parameter as well, inhabitants. And I have to change the getter, so I'll just delete it and try to create it here. Okay. So now we are able to parse the file. We'll define a private static list of city let's call it collection. Okay, I have to name it. And in the setup before class, I would like to read the collection, but for that I will use a properties file. Sorry, I have to create a new properties file. I will create a new file called query test.properties. I have to rename it query test, and I would like to save all that I did before. Okay, sorry for that. That is queries.properties. The path to the file should be just the name of the file in this directory, csv, cities.csv, and in here I will create a resource bundle. Let's create a new static final resource bundle called bundled, and with resource bundle, I will get the bundle for the query test.class.get name. So now that I have the bundle, I'll just read the key from that bundle file, and I'll have a static method, private static method, which will return the get path, the path from the bundle. So it will say bundle.getString of key path. In the setup before class, we'd like to load the list of cities. So we will define a final string path just by getting the path, and we will try to create an input stream. Let's call it stream with the query test class get resource as stream from the path, and we will load the collection by calling city load cities with this string. Okay, so first of all, let's check that we have the cities loaded. Let's call the method test query, and in here I would like to have checked that set not null, that the cities are loaded, and then I would like to assert true that the list of cities has a size greater than 0. Now I'm checking it by running this as a JUnit test, and as you can see, we are loading correctly the cities. Let's move forward. What we'd like to have with this querying framework will be to have a class query that will allow us to define a new query over this collection. I don't have the class created, but I will create it, not in the test folder, but in the source folder in the same package. And then I would like to be able to start creating a query. My query will have a parameter type for the type of the elements in the collection. Okay, so this should be a parameter. Because it is a static method, I will have to define the generic parameters in here. So it's not going to return null, but it's going to return a query of type M. So I will return a new query of type M with this collection. I will create the constructor accordingly, and in here I will store a reference to the collection with a field in the class. Okay, so this is the first step. I'm going to create a collection. Just not to be able to instantiate the collection directly, I will declare the constructor private, and I can say that the class should be final. I don't want to extend this anymore. So I'm starting by creating by calling the from method to create the query. This is going to return the query, and I would like to be able to list all the elements in the collection. So I'm going to create this method, and what it's supposed to do, it's going to collect all the fields in the collection that met the filtering criteria, for instance. So I will just create a new list of results of type M, and I will iterate through all the items in my collection, and okay, it's from before, sorry. And in here, I will say that the item is valid to be added to the results. I will iterate all the conditions later on and check if the item met all the criteria. And in the end, if the item is valid, is still valid, should be added to the results. In the end, I will return the results. Okay, and now the method should return a list of M as being the results. Now, when I'm calling this, I would like to create a list of city, the results, and I would like to statically import the method, just not to have to say it with the name of the class. So I'll do a static import here from query package, query class, method from, which will be the only method statically called. Okay. Now that I'm getting the results, we can check that the number of results is the same with the number of the items in the original collection. So what I will do here will be to say assert equals collection, or assert same okay, but I think equals should be better. Anyway, assert same the collection dot size equal collection equal results dot size. Sorry, results dot size. Okay, and now I can run the test again, and as you can see, we have a problem here because the size is not the same. Okay, should use assert equals actually first. Equals and rerun it. Okay, so this is checking the equals and not the reference. Okay, so we are listing the items in the original collection. Okay, that's the first step. But now we would like to be able to filter based on some criteria the items in the collection. So I would like to have a method here like where, which is not defined. I will do it right away. I would like to be able to apply it several times, so I will collect the conditions and return the same item. So I will return a query of M, and now with my where I will obtain the same results because I don't have any filter. In order to express my filtering and also sorting elements, I would like to define a model. So I will start by creating a new city model with all the fields, city model. That will extend later on a generic query of type city, query model of type city. I don't have created this class, and I will do it right now. I'm creating a query model of type M for the model of elements. So the city model will extend the generic query model. I will have a constructor for the city model, which will call the superclass with the type of elements in the collection. I will have to create this constructor in here, and a generic model will know the type of the elements in the collection. So now I'm storing this in the class. Okay, next step, I would like to be able to define what are the fields in the city class itself. So I would like to have a query field of type city and integer, which will be the ID, and I would like to return by calling a method from the query model to return a field over ID. We are creating this kind of wrapper just to be able to collect conditions and sorting elements as well. So I will define this class with generic type for the model and the value, and it will have to be in the source folder. That's the first step. And the second step, I don't have this method, so I'll have to create it, but I will move this method in the upper class. So I will declare it protected and final. By the way, I can declare the whole class final. Don't want to be extended. Okay, so this will get the name of the field and it will return a field over it. In the city model, now I am this is of type M, should be of type M and with the value of type V. And now I will have to declare the additional generic parameter for the value, and let's go back to that class. It says that I don't have a constructor. I do have a constructor, so let me check it again. The constructor should not be of type city, but rather of type M and the field as well. That's because I am generating the model. Okay, and now it says that the constructor with type city is undefined. Let me check it again. So this one should be protected. I don't want to instantiate the class directly. And this is model of type M. And in here, I am extending a query model of city. Okay, so the real problem here is that I defined the class final, but I just wanted this method to be final. Okay, so now it's okay. Yeah, I would like to be able to define the rest of the fields. I have another one for the name, which is a string, call it name, and another one of type string for the value called district over the field with the same name, and of course the number of inhabitants, that should be over the field inhabitants, and it will return integer as well. Okay, now let's focus on implementing that in the base class. So with this model I can express filtering and ordering conditions, but let's implement the functionality. So actually in this class I would like to have some kind of a map, like a cache, which will store the fields. This can have different type of return values, so should be generic as well. So this will be the list of fields, the hash of fields, the dictionary of fields. I will create a new hash map with all the fields. And now, when I have to create a new field, first I will check if the name is null. Then I will have to return null because I'm not able to get the field with it. And if I don't have a cache, my dictionary does not contain this entry, then I will have to create a new query field. Let's call it field with type M and V, and I will pass this as a reference as well as the name, and I will create this constructor. So I will pass the model and the name of the field, and I will store it in a field in this class. But for the name, I will create a field with the model I get the type of the model. This is not declared, so I will have to do it first. Okay, and then I don't have this method. I'm creating this method to return the type, which is a class of M. Okay, and next I'd like to get the declared field by its name and store it, which is the reflection field, the reflection of the definition of the field. I'm storing it in a local field. This can throw exceptions, so I'll just surround it with try multi-catch block, and in case an exception occurs, I will throw a new query exception with this information, the localized message of the inner exception and the inner exception itself. I will create this in the source folder, and I will have first to generate a default serial version for it, and I will have to create the appropriate constructor in here. Okay, and with this message and inner exception, I will call super of message and inner exception. I don't like the fact that the private field is declared below, so I will just use the outline to organize the source code. Now, going back to the query field, it says that this should throw an exception, or I will have to consume the exception, but I don't know how to compensate the exception. So I'm throwing it out from the class, and in here, when I'm creating a field, this should also throw an exception. When I save this, I will have to say that all these methods can throw the same kind of exception. Okay, so basically now I am able to define my model, this as well. And with this model, I can go forward and say in here that I want to filter all the elements that has, first let me create a model. So I will create city model. Let's call it model. Okay, and in here, those are the basic assertions to check the starting conditions of my test. And in here, when I create a model, I would like to use it to filter the results based on the name. So let's say I would like to see all the elements which has a name starting with B. Okay, I don't have defined this. That's the first step here. I would like to create this method. So in the query field, I can express different type of conditions. I will define a query condition of type M for the elements and V for the value of the condition. And this is the condition value, actually, condition value. But this should not be a string, but rather should be a generic type V. The class is not created yet, so I will do it right away. I created the condition class with generic type for model and value. Second step. This method does not have parameters, so I will change the method definition to include a variable number of conditions of type M and any for the value. Let's call this variable list conditions. So what I would like to do here would be to collect the conditions. So I will have a conditions list inside my class, and I will add all get with arrays as list from the conditions. This field is not defined, and I have to create it in the class. Should be a list of query conditions of type M and generic for the value. This list should be created as an array list when I am instantiating the item. So this should be the type for the elements. Okay, And now we are able to filter based on these conditions. Now, model like is not handling the exception, but this should throw generic exception. And I have a list of variable numbers of types with generic parameters, but I will suppress uncheck warning because I know what I'm doing with the generic types in here. So I'm collecting the list of elements, the conditions I mean, and then I will have to impose the condition to check if this is valid or not. So in the list method I have to iterate through all the query conditions of type m and any with a condition argument over the list of conditions in my class, and if this condition is not valid, is not validated by the item, then I will say that valid is false, and I will break the for over all the conditions that remains. So I have to create this method. Okay, that's not the solution I need. I will have to create in the query condition a public boolean check. It will get an item from the model and eventually it will return true in the beginning. Okay, that's the first thing I need to do in order to implement the condition checking. But then, here in my test, I say I would like to start with B. And when I'm creating the condition, I'm returning null. So I have to create a new query condition of type M and V. I will pass reference to this field and of course the condition value. But because I will implement different type of operators to express conditions, I would like to have an enum type for the query condition types, and I would like to have a literal for like condition. Okay, so in here I'm creating an enum in the source folder, and second step I will have to define this literal in the enum. Okay, then I will have to create a constructor with this signature in the query condition. This is the field, this is the condition value, and this is the type of the condition. All of them needs local field in this class. I'll create the field, the value, okay, I will call it value, and of course the type. Okay, field, value, and type. And if I go to the query field, here I can say this is the value for the condition. Okay, let's rename it again, value, like value. Okay, so now I have to implement my check in the query condition. So first of all, when I'm checking, I have to see if the item is null. If it is, I will return false. I don't know what kind of condition I can have that accept true for a null item. Second, I will have to get the actual value of the item. And for that, I will get the field and call it to get the value out of this item. And I will have to create this method in the field. Okay, I don't have the method in here, I will have to add it. So method public v get value. In order to get the value, I will make the field accessible if it's not. so I have to define a boolean accessible, and with the inner field I will say if it's accessible. If it's not accessible, then I have to make it accessible, so I will say field set accessible true. In the end, if it wasn't accessible, I will have to make it to let it as it was. So if it's not accessible, I'll have to say should not be accessible anymore. And I will get the value of the object by calling the field to get the value from the model, from the item. Sorry, I should have here I should have an item. So this is the item. Okay. Then this can throw an exception. I will surround with try catch multi-block actually. In case of an exception, I will throw a new query exception with the inner message e get localized message and e. Okay. This means that the whole method can throw an exception, and in the end I will return the cast to v of the object value that I've got, and I'm suppressing the warnings for the unchecked. In here I'm getting the value. I'm supposed to treat the exception as well, so I don't have to surround the try catch, but rather to throw the exception itself. So I'm getting the value, and depending on the condition type, I should check the value against the value of the condition. So now I'll have a switch based on the type, and if it is like, I will return check like condition with the value and the condition value. I will create this method with the value of the object and the value of the condition. Okay. I can actually remove this parameter and use the field in the class just to make it short. So how do I implement the like operator, for instance? First of all, I'm not applying it on something different than string. So if value is not instance of string, or condition value is not instance of string, I will say return false. That's the first step. Second, let define a value, a string value to be the value to string, not trim but to lower. I'm comparing it into lowercase. I'll define a string condition value, and I will use this value to string to lower. Okay, and now, for instance, if string condition value ends with any but doesn't start with any, string condition value doesn't start with any, in this case I would like that my value to start with a prefix. So I'll define a prefix. This will be I'm getting from the string condition value substring from 0 to string condition value dot length -1. So in this case I'm removing the ending % from the string condition value. I'm getting the prefix, and I should say return string value starts with prefix. Else, if string condition value doesn't end with any but do start with any, I will have a suffix. The suffix will be get from the string condition value. So it is like it doesn't end with any, but do start with any. So my string will have to end with this. So for the suffix, I'm just removing the first character in the string condition value, which is any. And this will be the suffix that my value should end with. Sorry, with this suffix. Else, it is possible that I'd like to check if my value contains something. So if string condition value ends with any and starts with any, then the contains will be substring from string condition value starting from the next after any and ending from string condition value length -1. And I will just check that my value contains the contains value. Otherwise, I will just return that my value is equal with string condition value. Okay? So in case my value is not a string or it's null, then it won't match the condition, even if the condition is null as well. So now I can go in here and say that this is throwing an exception, can throw an exception, but I can check if my test actually performs. So now I would like to execute first the test as it was, and I got a null pointer exception because I'm not in here. I'm doing something wrong. Let me check it. So when I'm creating a field, I'm passing the reference, but it is stored. It is stored, yeah. Okay. And in the second step, I should check when I'm creating a condition with this field, if it's storing the field, and then I will see if this executes. So let me debug it. Okay, if it doesn't, so it's not getting through here. But then let me see in the model when I'm returning the field with the name. So let me check it again. In here I called name, and it should return the field over the name. Okay, the problem seems to be that I am creating the field, but I'm not storing it, and I'm returning null. So I didn't finish to implement this method. Okay, so let's get and put for the name key the field that I've created, and then returning the corresponding field for the name. Now it should work, and I can remove all the breakpoints because I don't need them anymore. This can throw an exception, that's okay, but should be cast to this value, and eventually I should suppress the warnings. Okay, let me check it and test it again. Okay, it seems that we have a problem here, and it's normal to be like this because now I'm filtering the results, and not all the items will have the name starting with B. So this is improper to test it like this. I will have to iterate first to assert not null. I'm still expecting that the results won't be null. Then I will have to iterate through all the results with an element of type city in the results. Let's call it result. and I will have to assert not null for the result. I will also check that the result dot get name is not null, and then I will say set true that result get name starts with B, and I will say result get name to lower because I'm comparing with starts with. And this is the way I'm filtering the results, and this should be true, and the test should pass. As you can see, all the items returned are actually having a name starting with B. I can see that as well if I like, so I can output the result get name. So as you can see from here, when I'm running it, I have all the names starting with B. So we've implemented a way to filter the results. The second step will be to do a simple ordering based on some fields of the model. Then we would like to do a projection, like selecting a set of fields and not listing all the elements. And also in the end we will show how to implement additional filtering operators, not just like for strings but numeric comparators for values. But this will be in the next episodes.